Welcome, everybody. This is Andres coming to you live from Grand Rapids. Today, we are making dough and pizza on our baking steel. Going to be phenomenal. First, I'm going to make some dough. I think we're going to do this really fast. I'm going to make a really small batch. I want to show you guys my process. We've got some first-timers here. First-timers, I'm using a digital scale because I want to measure everything by weight. This recipe was developed by weight, so we need to really replicate it. We need to duplicate the exact ingredients, and the only way to do that is by measuring by grams. This is how the recipe was designed. So I'm going to put 250 grams of bread flour. We love bread flour. This is organic bread flour. And I really recommend bread flour and got a higher protein content. It cooks beautifully on a baking steel. We could use all-purpose if that's around too. It just all-purpose flour doesn't have the same strength. It's not gonna ferment as long as a bread flour or a 00, something that's higher in protein. So I'm going to show you guys a top down of exactly what I'm doing here. So you can see dough. I've got my flour in here. I'm adding 8 grams of salt, which is not going to be a lot. So it's this much. This much salt. It's a sea salt. I dump it in. And before I do anything else, I want to whisk my ingredients. I put them all in this separately so my salt and yeast do not come in direct contact. Otherwise, it could kill off some of that yeast. And now for yeast, I want to use like a micro scale. I'm going to use about 1/2 gram. This is probably a little heavy, but that's okay. As reference, those yeast packages are typically 9 grams. We're using 1 of them. So now I just whisk this again. And that's it. I whisked my ingredients together, and now I'm going to pour in my water. This is a filtered water. It's 175 grams, which is like 1/2 a batch, basically. And now I'm going to take my bench scraper. I love our dough containers because these help us contain the mess, right? A couple times I'm going to do this. I'm going to use a timer. Okay, and I want to get my hand in here, just kind of knead it for maybe 2 or 3 minutes. And all I'm trying to do is take all the dry clumps of flour out. You can see it gets really sticky. That's okay. And I like these dough scrapers because they help clean up underneath you, right? And I'm just forming one big mass of dough. After 2 or 3 minutes, I'm done. Okay, so I've got one big ball of dough. I'm kind of expediting this. My ball of dough, and now what I'll do is I'm going to sorry about that. I'm going to cover this up. First, I'm going to clean my hand, right? Clean my hand up. I'm going to take my dough container, just cover it, and let it sit at room temperature. And I made this like 2 days ago. Let this sit at room temperature for 24 hours, depending on your schedule. If you're making it early in the morning, you could actually, it's going to double in size in about 12 to 14 hours. And if you're using these containers, it'll just kind of spread out. It'll sprawl in the container, and then it'll start to rise. So depending on how much you make, but just keep an eye on it. After 24 hours, we're going to place this container in the fridge for about 2 more days. And then we'll have a 72-hour dough. The day of pizza making, so if I mix my dough on a Tuesday or Wednesday, I'm going to get up about 3 to 4 hours before pizza time. I'm going to make dough balls. And I'll actually show you how I make a dough ball. This is, again, now my dough is going to be cold, right? I'm going to break off a piece of dough however I want to, I can divide it up, 350 grams, 300 grams or so, 250, right? Take a dough ball. And now I'm going to do is flour up my countertop. Get this dough, it's sticky, right? Flour up my hands. You can see exactly what I'm doing. And now I'm going to pick this dough up, and I'm essentially going to fold it in half and then turn it. This is a really important step, and I kind of press it in again and then close. And I follow the same sequence over and over again. So I press in and then close and then turn. Always, this seam side is always facing away from my chest. The smooth side's towards my chest. I just press in. It's not a stress ball, so I'm not going super deep. Just a light press and then close. And I follow this sequence. Each time I do this, this ball is getting more and more taut. I'm knocking some of the air out. So you're getting a really nice tight ball. Again, I want to emphasize, do not press in really deep. Really be gentle. You can see I'm not ripping the gluten strands. I'm trying to keep it all intact. So we need to be really like gentle. And press, turn and press. After about 15 to 20 pounds, you'll feel the ball getting nice and tight. That smooth side can go into my palm, and now I can pinch the seams close here. And now I've got this really beautiful dough ball. This is for pizza night. So I'm going to leave this. I can put it right back in my dough container, right? So I want to keep it covered for about 3 hours is ideal. Sometimes maybe 4 hours, depending on the temperature. It's summer now, so we're gonna proof a little bit faster. So I made these. I made these at home this morning. So to travel, put them in these delis. And I made my balls. I put some oil in here so it'll release better, because now it's pizza time. So do you have any questions before we get into the next phase, which is actually making the pizza? Let's get to some here if we could. All right. So Jewel is asking, is 1/2 gram a yeast correct? That looked like more. Jewel, I should have used, yes, you're right. That was probably a little bit more. I should have used my digital scale, which is where? I don't know where my digital scale is. Maybe I brought it home. Oh, here it is. Let's measure. Jewel, that's a great question. So let's measure what 1/2 gram looks like. And I'll show you guys. I'm using a micro scale here. And what this can do is dial in to the 1/100th. And I didn't want to bore you guys when I was mixing it. But I'm going to show you exactly 1/2. This is 0.48. So you can see, we go like this in my palm. You can see exactly what I got. That is 1/2 gram. So it's minuscule. And that's all it takes in our, well, this is in this batch. I made a small batch of dough. Typically, we use 1 gram and 500 grams of flour. So I went a little bit light just because I've got a lot of dough. So Dave's asking, why bread flour versus 00? Dave, great question. And this is a dealer's choice test flavor type of thing. We experimented with a lot of different recipes. We based this off of Jim Leahy's ratios of salt and water. But we decided we were doing a longer ferment because we wanted more flavor built up. And I tested a lot of different bread flours, and the one we've kind of settled on was sent from Central Milling. It's their high gluten bread flour, got a high protein content in it. I love the way it bakes on a baking steel at 500 degrees in an oven, in a home oven. I like the water content. It ferments great, holds the fermentation great. And that's my answer. Other people might say, I love 00 better. So really, there's no right or wrong answer. I know other people that actually combine flours. They might use 00 and bread flour and combine them both to make your dough. I experiment. Sometimes I'll dump 5% spelt into my flour just to change up a little bit, add some nuttiness to it, some earth tones. It's really great. I guess there is no right or wrong answer. It's just all experiment. For my testing, I'm a steel guy. I love steel. I almost always cook in a home oven. I just found that bread flour and this one particular from Central Milling is just amazing. Any downside to the, yeah, no, great question. So Marcy's asking if I made my dough balls. You can see these lids are almost popping off, right? These are like almost 300 grams. So I, I made dough balls this morning. I did not have a scale. So I literally had to do it by kind of vibe, feel. And each one of these are about 300 on the button. One's like 292. So I was consistent, a little bit bigger than I wanted them to be. I hope that's off. So Ben is asking, yes, that's a really good question, Ben. I thought about this a lot. Have I thought about using a biga? And I have used one, but I find it's unnecessary because I'm mixing my dough, as you saw, and I'm going to ferment the entire batch of dough for the next 24 hours. When I do a biga, I'm taking a small portion and starting that pre-ferment. Then I'm adding it into a bigger batch, which is not going to be all fermented, if that makes sense. So I find just doing it all at the same time, it's like I got this one giant biga that's just building flavor for us all the time. So I tried not to use it. I left my dough out for 72 hours. Ooh, Catherine. So outside of the fridge for 72 hours, you might, it will be okay, but it might have a really sour taste to it. I'm not sure what the temperature was. When I talk about room temperature, to me, that means between like 68 and 72, comfortable. For dough, it might be warm for that length of time and it might become like sour, but interesting. I would give it a taste and see. So Aaron's asking, have I used diastatic malt for the color? I have used it. Yes, it does. If I'm making a 24-hour dough, adding a little bit of malt is a really nice idea. Sometimes if I know I'm making a 24-hour dough, I might even add a little bit of cane sugar or honey into my dough just to give it a little bit of a lift because I know it's not going to be fermenting as long. But typically when I do 2 or 3 day, I don't really need to add anything because it's got really natural flavors inside. Thoughts about dividing the doughs into balls before fermentation? Doug, yes, we have done that too. However, with more experimenting and more practice, I have found, like in fact, our original version of this was 24-hour fermentation, ball it up into these delis and put these delis into the fridge for 2 more days. But what we found is that the dough, even because the fridges aren't constant, we're opening and closing, the doughs tend to overproof in the fridge. So what happens is when dough's overproofed, yeah, it still works, but it just loses that vitality. It doesn't get as funky and beautiful and bubbly. So we found by dialing in our final proof, and to me that means today's pizza day, I take my bulk dough out of the fridge and I make my dough balls. And I know I can let these proof for like 3, maybe 4 hours. They're not going to really overproof. So I can just really dial that part in. If I had to let the dough balls proof longer, like, okay, I get a distracted and then got distracted. Yeah, right. You can get distracted pretty easy. So so Paul, to be clear, this recipe, you can make this recipe, I say a minimum of 24 hours. I mix my ingredients like I just did earlier today. I'll let that proof for 24 hours and then I can make pizza. I think 24 hours bare minimum to get some flavor, some fermentation in there. And then if I'm not going to make pizza after 24 hours, I will take my dough batch instead of making dough balls and I'll just place it in my fridge for 1 or 2 more days. We have just found in all of our testing, if you're trying to impress your friends, your girlfriend, your wife, 3 days is just really the ultimate. It's the perfect formula for incredibly flavorful dough. I hope that answers that. Suggestions for gluten-free, Daryl, great question. I won't be able to cover that today, but there are some flours that are gluten-free that are very good. I got to test more of them, but I have tested some and they're great. So big improvements there. Awesome. Thank you. I hope I answered that too, Marcy. All right. So that is the dough. Okay. We just made dough. Now let's move on to pizza night. So let's fast track 4 hours. We're gonna make pizza now. Okay. So what is pizza night for me? So we got to get all of our stuff ahead of time. And I talk about mise en place, right? Just kind of get your stuff together before your guests arrive. And to me, that is preheating my oven. I like to go at least 1 hour with my baking steels inside. I've got 2 steels in my home oven here, one on the bottom rack, one on the top rack. I don't need 2, but if I'm making multiple pizzas, having 2 is really nice. If we'll peek inside my oven a little bit, like a flour loaf myself. So, all right. Preheat, and then I want to get my stuff ready, right? So my sauce, let's talk about sauce. I am using Bianco di Napoli. These are whole peeled tomatoes. They're the beautiful ones, right? The ones they pick off the vines. Got a really nice taste to them. All I'm doing is crushing them either by hand or with a food processor, just pulsing them and adding sea salt. And you can taste, these tomatoes taste amazing, right? So good out of the can. All we're gonna do is heat these up on our pizza. And they already are vibrant. So if you can't taste them out of the can and be like in awe, then get another can. We have found Bianco di Napoli to be incredible. They also have a crushed version. It's a blue can. And those are the less than perfect. They may have fallen off the vines. They could be bruised, right? So they kind of crush them for us, and they're awesome too. And I sometimes prefer those. I think they might be a little sweeter. They're really nice. And then if you don't have an option to get Bianco di Napoli, just go to your market, try some tomatoes, look them up on Google, see what you can do with them, taste them first, and boom, there you go. But all we do is we add a little bit of sea salt for our base tomato sauce. All right, so we got our sauce. Let's talk cheese, because today we're making a plain cheese pizza. But I want to see, I've got a few different variations of cheese here. I have a whole milk mozzarella, a fresh low moisture. I have a fresh mozzarella, which is got some moisture, so it's softer. I'm using a Fontina. And so I've kind of did something with my cheese here. I've graded these differently, right? I've used, if you've been following me a little bit, you know I love my Wonder Shredder because it makes these really big shreds of cheese. And the Fontina is what I shredded with that. And there's no real rhyme or reason, but the Fontina is going to melt, have this really nice flavor to it. So I made bigger chunks of this. This is the low moisture mozzarella. I use a traditional shredder for this. And my fresh mozz, I kind of just cut into cubes. Again, there's no right or wrong way of doing this. This is the way those are my cheeses. And I might sprinkle a little bit of Romano cheese on the sauce. Just give it that really salty, that nice saltiness that when you bite into it, phenomenal, right? Again, we just try to as pizza makers, we try to sneak in a little bit of flavors here and there. All right, let's get into making the pizza. So I'm gonna try this camera again, and lean flour and flour. Be generous here. We'll knock a lot of this off. Right, I want to get this here so you can see here. All right, now my dough. Again, I'm using these delis because they travel nice. I oil it up so it doesn't get stuck in here. I just turn it over, give a little help. Plop it right down into the flour. I kind of coat both sides so it doesn't stick. And this dough feels like a cloud. Look how beautiful those bubbles are, right? About 300 grams. It's gorgeous. Just keep pressing out. And I'll pick it up so it doesn't get stuck. Right? And I'm going to kind of go for a crazy shape today. I'm not going to do round. I'm going to do just my own shape. I'm going to bring back my fig day. Now the bubbles, the pros like to pop them because they want consistency. We're not pros. We're home pizza makers, so we can do what we like, right? When this gets to be about 10 inch, or 7 or 8 inches maybe, I can pick this up and put it on the back of my knuckles. And I'm going to let gravity do its thing here. You can see my hands are just kind of turning a little bit on the perimeter. I'm just kind of giving it a shake. I'm gonna give it a little tug in between and a little pull. And I just work consistently so I get a nice consistent stretch. But really, the gravity is doing its thing here. I'm not doing much. Is that pretty? You can see it's getting there, right? Again, so I take it and let kind of gravity is kind of bouncing. I don't want to poke through it, my knuckles. There's a nice reflection there, huh? Just like press it out. It's my dough, by the way, because it's been sitting out, it's about room temperature. So it's been sitting for 3 or 4 hours. And it's like, it's like after a yoga class, it's what you feel like, right? Your muscles are supple. Well, that's what's happening with the dough because it's been sitting. Now, if this dough is still cold, it would not stretch. Those glutens would be super tight. Like, what are you doing? You've probably done this from the supermarket. You bought their dough and you stretch it. It goes right back again. You're like, what the heck's going on here? Well, the dough needs to chill out and do a yoga class, if you will, right? So anyway, there's my dough. Isn't that nice? Isn't that pretty? You guys see here? Those bubbles are nice, right? It's pretty thin. See, it's almost like an oval size. I'm doing this on purpose. All right, so now got my dough. I'm gonna grab my pizza peel. I'm using my Baking Steel Plus peel today just because I made a little bigger pizza. I just felt like changing it up, not necessary. It's still tapered at the end, so it's easier to launch. I use this when I'm making multiple breads or multiple pizzas or baguettes. It's just longer for my Baking Steel Plus. I'm not using the Plus today. I'm just using the regular. I use my original steel in my oven. But in any case, here's my dough. I'm gonna give you a top down again here. You can see exactly what I'm doing. Here we go. Let's go like this. I don't know why this camera keeps my pizza, right? My bread, my dough. I want to make sure this is jiggling a little bit so it's sliding back and forth because when I go into the oven, if something is stuck, this is the time to pick it up. So if I got the corner stuck, I want to stick some flour underneath it, right? And I want to be assured that this thing's still like loose like a hockey puck is our metaphor. Loose like a hockey puck. All right, so now for my sauce, plug it on here. And I go to the sauce, I bring it to the edge, but not over the edge. Just like life, right? Not too heavy, less is more, but I like sauce, right? So not too much. And now, I can give this a little pinch, a little bit of the edges here maybe. You can see, like now I'm gonna throw my cheese, I'm gonna throw some Romano on first. Again, this is gonna be my sneaky flavor attack, right? It's got that saltiness. Got a little salt in the sauce too, but just a little bit of Romano. And now, again, there's no order for this. We'll see what I'm doing. I'm gonna put my mozzarella. I got to try to go, remember, less is more, even though I'm using a lot of different cheeses. I'll do some Fontina. You can see the layers of flavor, right? And now I'll take some fresh mozzarella. And just kind of spread it out. You could grip this by hand. Anybody, any shredders out there? That's our pizza. It's ready to go in the oven. Maybe a little bit more of this here. Boom. If you'd like, you could use a little bit of oil, just a tiny bit of oil. And that's our pizza. Isn't that pretty? All right. So now I'm going to slide this into the oven. I go to the back of the peel to my back of my steel and just kind of lightly, gingerly slide it off. And I'll talk about the oven in a second. Actually, let me go up top here. My steel's super hot. I'm going to switch my oven to broil just for 1 minute. And I'm gonna do like a slower bake, but I like to use the broiler because it gives me a little bit of that direct heat. And sometimes I'll launch, and if you've been to class before, I've launched with the broiler kind of radiating super hot heat down below just to get that steel scorching hot for the launch. This one, it's a little thinner crust. I'm just gonna get a little bit brown on top, turn the broiler off, and just do a straight bake. It's gonna be phenomenal. Probably about a 4 or 5 minute bake in total, which again, super fast for a home oven. All right, so let's get to the questions here. Could you keep all the dough balls in one big dough container? Yes. So typically, if I didn't ball up all my dough this morning, so I only had this one container. So I used the delis. I have multiple containers. Typically, I'll just make my balls and put them right back in my container. I might clean it out first, right? Take all my dough out, make my dough balls, place them back in, because these are great. It's a great place to keep it nice and covered. Make sure my oven's not too hot. You can see that my broiler's on, which is great. Go like this. Let me see, cancel. And do back to convection bake. I preheated, just so there's gas and there's electric ovens. This is an electric oven. It's newer, so it's got like sensors on it. If it gets too hot, I have a hard time getting my broiler on. So what I've done instead is I've tricked it. I preheat now at 450 Fahrenheit with convection. Then when I want to use the broiler, the oven's not going to say, hey, it's too hot, it's too hot. So it basically turns on almost simultaneously or very fast, which might be like 30 seconds versus waiting several minutes. So I kind of trick it by preheating at 450 versus 500. Now a gas oven, they're different animals. Gas, typically when you switch your broiler to, it goes on almost instantaneously, which I love in a home oven. On the grill versus the oven. Do you ever cook? Yes, Daryl, I do cook pizza on the grill. I put my steel right on there. I almost do it like flatbread. I get my steel ripping hot. There's two ways I could make it traditional. Put the pizza on, close the lid, bake it. It's about you got to be careful because grills do not convect the same way home ovens do. So just because it gets really hot doesn't mean it's going to cook well. What we have found is we want to keep that temperature around 350 to 400 on an outside grill and do a nice slow bake. Alternatively, you can take your, get your steel pretty hot, place your dough on top with a little bit of olive oil, sear it, and then flip it over. So it's like a flatbread, and then top it, and then let your cheeses and sauces and things get hot, and it's really good. So it's like a grilled pizza, different style. Anything magic about sea salt? Marcy, great question. It's funny, I've been using this sea salt, Celtic sea salt, which I just love. And I use it in my water anyway. I drink a water with a little bit of salt in it, which I love. And it's a really nice minerals, really good flavors. So I've been using it in most of my doughs as well, or my sauces or whatever it might be. I gotta make sure my oven is not too hot. I'm gonna put my timer on here. Sorry guys, I don't want to forget. Always use your timer. So Jose, my temperature of my oven right now is, it's going back up to 500 convection. I've already used my broiler, so I just set it to 500 and it'll get back there probably before this, maybe before the pizza's done or not. Anything magic about the sea salt? I got that one there. I've seen some recipes place a light coating of olive oil on the dough before placing ingredients to prevent sogginess. Oh, interesting. Paul, great question. I know a lot of guys that will use the olive oil around the perimeter of the dough just to kind of give it that, it browns it a little nicer. It gives a little bit of flavor. I don't know if it does anything about the sogginess. It could, I guess, technically crisp it up. But if we're using a baking steel, we don't really have that issue. So to me, olive oil would just be a flavor enhancer, if that makes sense. So get a good one. How much salt in the dough recipe? Auto phased out for me. So Aaron, and I'll share, in fact, I'm gonna put the ingredients right here for you guys. So it's 500 grams bread flour, That's 350 grams water, and then 16 grams sea salt, 1 gram yeast. And we'll send this in an email too. And I mixed this dough. I did about half that size earlier. So I'm just going to check this. Oh my gosh, it looks amazing. I'm just rotating it one time. I'm going to put 1 more minute on. So I don't forget. 1 minute. And this thing will be done. I don't know, total wise, it's like a 4 or 5 minute bake. What rack, Dave, great question. My rack, so in my oven, this oven here, I've got, in fact, let's go in. Let's go in, it's even better, right? I got time here. And inside, I've got 2 steels. I got a baking steel on the bottom, a baking steel on top. My one on top is about 7 inches from the broiler. And I find that pretty close, but I'm lucky because these racks slide out. Isn't that beautiful, that pizza, by the way? Isn't that cool looking? Underneath. Oh, man, it looks amazing. All right. Almost done in like 12 seconds. Let me get this camera ready for you guys. Anybody hungry? So my rack slide out here. Oh, yeah. Oh boy, this is amazing. So quickly, underneath is great. Top, amazing. It's hot, so I can't be careful. Show you the top down here. Need witnesses. Isn't that beautiful, guys? Okay, so I got a little char, not too much. It's crispy. You hear that, right? Crust. We could sprinkle a little bit of mano at the end here. Again, little right, little bite, and then man, we're just gonna just devour this thing. It looks so good, right? It's amazing. So good, right? You see? Beautiful, just a plain cheese pizza. Sorry, I went through our blog. We have not done a plain cheese pizza. I've been doing this for 10 years. Not once have I done a plain cheese pizza for a blog post. So this is coming, probably with that follow-up email. I'll do that. Smells so good too. All right, what brand of stove? Debbie, great question. This is actually Monogram oven. Love it. I had Monogram in my old test kitchen. In fact, I just built a house. We used all Monogram. I've got a gas and electric in the home, which is pretty nice. I can kind of do both. Interesting though, if I'm making multiple pizzas and I'm going to use one oven, I'm going to use the electric wall oven because I don't have to keep bending down. It's like more height. It's very easy to adapt to that size, right? Versus bending down. I can just kind of crank them out. If you put the steel on the lower rack, would the bottom get browner? So, Jewel, great question. When we first started this like 10 years ago, my initial instructions were baking steel on the bottom rack. And it was great. And I still think it's fine. But what we did, we learned and we kind of got better, I think, at making pizzas. And we found that I like to use the broiler. So we switched it up. Really wasn't because it was getting too dark, but there are some ovens with that heating element on the bottom that if you put your steel close to the bottom rack, it can get hotter down there. So be mindful of that. Again, every oven's a little bit different. If I go to if someone invites me to their home to make pizzas with them, hint, and I'll come and if I only had one steel, I'm putting it in the middle rack. Maybe a little bit middle to top, just because I want to use the broiler, but I don't want to get too close to the bottom, not knowing the oven well. So play it safe. Do you ever use cornmeal on the peel for easiest? Yeah, so great question, Marcy. My feelings on the launch, so when I want to slide my pizza, I like to use a combination of flour. I always have these containers, flour and semolina flour. I like semolina flour. It's a durum flour, very fine ground. I like the texture. My beef with cornmeal is that it's corn. I don't want to, and some people like it, but I don't love the taste of the corn underneath my pizza, especially if it gets caked on. So again, when you're launching, you got to flour your peel, right? But less is more. You don't want to have too much. I Zamboni my steel. If I was making another pizza right now, I would open the oven up. I'd clean off my steel with my rag. I want to keep my surface as clean as possible because you can see underneath my pizza's clean, right? And I don't want to get it all caked with stuff. So always keep your steel clean. Cornmeal will work. I know rice flour doesn't have a lot of taste. People will use that too. I just prefer semolina, Bob's Red Mill, and the flour that I'm using in the dough. What percentage flour protein do you use? So Kenneth, great question. I'm not going to get this exactly right, but it's about 13.4 or 13.8, somewhere in that vicinity of the flour that I use from Central Milling. I should know that, but it's in the high 13s. Versus like an all-purpose might be like 11. Back from Tulsa, Oklahoma. Love these classes. Thanks, Jerry. Appreciate that. It's amazing. And Jewel just confirmed via web search that Monogram is a luxury GE brand manufactured by Haier. Oh, good. Yeah, Monogram was GE. I think they've separated. There still could be a division of, but I do love their ovens. They're really nice. Does anybody else have any questions? I'm a mess here, huh? Anybody hungry? All right, my question is about the proofing window. More specifically, how not to overproof. I love the 72-hour dough. On this past Saturday, 3 days ago, I split the dough in half, made one pizza sundae, and the other half is still in the fridge, still in the bowl, and not made into a dough ball yet. Is the dough in the fridge still okay? Oh, great question. Or is this the day-hour window after the 72-hour ferment? Oh, great question. No, your dough is going to be fine. Depending on the flour that you used, I make breads often with 7-day dough. For example, like this, I made Monday, this dough, and I'm going to have more in the fridge. If I don't make pizzas on Friday and I come in on Monday, a lot of times, like if it's 7-day-old dough, I'll make big dough balls or I'll stretch it. I'll make baguettes or something. I'll just make it into some kind of bread. It's going to taste phenomenal. So again, depending on the flour, some flours can last longer than others because of the gluten content in them or the protein. So again, vibe it out, but if it doesn't smell bad, it's going to be fine. Might have a little sour taste to it. You guys are great. Are there any more questions? Please email me, andres@bakingsteel.com. If you have any questions, I would love to help. Again, we're obsessed with making sure that you guys are making like legendary pizza at home. We think you have the tool with the baking steel and the recipes. And it is mind-blowing, guys. Just continue making pizzas. Like I love making pizza. It doesn't get old. They're so fun. Any tips on people with the Innova precision? Great question. Hi, Jewel. I haven't even used I have an oven. I haven't used it yet because I'm in the process of changing some things in the kitchen. If you have any specific questions, reach out to me, Andres@BakingSteel, and I'm sure I can help or get the answer for you. Love it. Thank you, guys. You guys are amazing. I'm grateful for you. 2 weeks we're doing bread, so circle back. We'll see you then. If you have any questions, reach out to me. Thank you.